Hi, welcome to High Road to You. This is Mark Sofer, and I am really excited to share this content with you because I'm just talking to so many people. I'm out talking with people that are pitching ideas, in the AI sector, and just there's a lot of exciting stuff happening out there. But also on the back end of things, AI is disrupting many industries. I'm talking to people that are saying, look, I've never been laid off before, and I never have had any challenge at all whatsoever getting a job, and they have certain lifestyles. And that is absolutely concerning, right? I was talking with somebody that's in the ag industry, and they're putting together innovations in robotics that literally will prepare the field, seed the field, maintain the field, pick, weeds going down all the rows, and maintaining that field, and then harvesting the field, packaging the harvest, putting on autonomous trucks, and then delivering to cold storage plants and delivering it all over the world, right? Without human labor. That's just around the corner. Elon Musk talks about it quite a bit. And, some people might say, well, that's their problem, right? Well, it depends on what industry you're in. It depends on where you stand to, try to maintain your lifestyle. I have somebody that was doing virtual design, and the technology was just amazing, showing me this stuff. And he says, gosh, this used to take me 8 months, and now it takes me weeks. And how do I charge that client $80,000? How do I charge him what my going rate would be if it took me 8 months when it takes me weeks? And then the quality of the work is much, much better, where he can do this material where the material's calculated, the time it takes to install, and then the labor, everything is incorporated into the bid. So when you're looking at AI and robotics, it's lowering the cost. There's only 4 things that you need to concern yourself with. I don't care what you're going to build, what products and or services you're going to offer the marketplace. Okay, it's time cost, material cost, labor cost. The only other cost is frustration. Frustration is the biggest cost. And as AI and robotics lower those costs dramatically, Elon Musk says, okay, we're going to live in abundance, right? Nobody's going to have to work. And let's look forward to that, right? But I propose healthy scarcity. I propose healthy scarcity. We don't need to live in abundance. I think so much of the Western culture is just propaganda, right? To believe that you need all of this, materialism and, it's consumption at, GDP, all that stuff. It's like, really? What about nutrition? What about just healthy social interaction? I'm part of a meetup group, and we went hiking Ocean Beach. There was about 30 of us, and what a blast. It was just such a great day. Very little money spent. You don't need to buy a lot of stuff to venture out. And I have bins where within 10, 15 minutes, it says camping. I can be down the road in 10, 15 minutes. And it says surf, my surf equipment, and then go. And then spearfishing, go. There's just so many things that I can do. But once you invest in those things, they'll last for years. Okay, I don't really necessarily believe in buying new stuff every season. A lot of my snow gear, it's not the fashion statement. Let's say it's not the fashion statement. Like, I think about guys that are wearing these neon, wetsuits, and they're out of style the next season. Well, what's wrong with a black one? What's wrong with the black one that'll look, in style 10, 20, 30 years from now? I buy clothes that I don't try to make that kind of a fashion statement where I'm trying to keep up with the trends, but if it depends on the economy, the stimulation of economy to keep jobs going, right? Well, if jobs are not the factor anymore, then we should look forward to that, spending more time doing healthy things that don't require that, getting on that treadmill and trying to keep up with the Joneses. As you build out, your portfolio, you take everything that comes with it. That's how it works. And, it just doesn't make sense to me because it then owns you. You don't own it, it owns you. As I build out my business portfolio, I build a team. I build a team so it blesses a lot of people so that they're using their God-given gifts. I have a manager that is an incredible marketing content creator. Oh my gosh, it goes viral. And we have to shut down our registration because we have a wait list and we just don't have the capacity, to to take on the extra sales, right? There is no sales involved. It's just marketing, and that marketing tracks, traffic to your website, and then people want to register their pets. We're in the pet care industry, and building out the most premier pet resort is the objective. And when you do that, you reach a full capacity, and then you'll offer other services as well. But the bottom line is this: is that you need people to navigate that. My goal is to compensate more than anybody in the history of the industry, in the entire history of the industry. And I want to compensate our kennel techs and train them up the ranks as looking at not just as a career, but as an ownership mentality in our portfolio. And so it's just exciting, to build a team and navigate that. But I do imagine that there will be a robot that will take their place, a robot that can train a dog better than a human. I'll tell you, we don't train dogs, we train humans. We train humans because they will disrupt, a good dog. And, we were training service dogs for families that had autism, and, we would do great on site. And then there would be these host families coming in, and they'd take the dog off site and just totally undermine, a year of basic obedience. And they'd come back, and the dog would be, dragging them up the driveway back to the facility after they kept it for 3 or 4 months, going out into public and going into grocery stores and hospitals and airports, and, doing what they're supposed to do to finish the dog for the task of being tethered to a child with autism, let's say. And, what I talked about when you talked about time, material, labor, and then frustration was the biggest cost, because we couldn't get these families to follow the program, and they would undermine all of that training when a family has been waiting 2 years for the dog to get finished, their baby. It was very, very disheartening. So extremely frustrating, right? And so they'd say, oh, if it doesn't work out, can we keep Daisy, And I just wish they had a better relationship with the family and with the child that was desperately needing this service dog. And with that, in every environment, the human element is the biggest challenge. And I propose that AI is going to remove all of that, right? I think that this is just such an amazing time in our lives where we can look forward to the fact that we don't have to work. I think that if we're at the forefront of, having a universal, it's universal, income. And then you think about, the idea that maybe it's based on what they do in regards to their health, right? Where it's tracked. And then them, as healthier they become, the more revenue that the universal income they receive, the more volunteer work they do in their communities, the more that they are involved in the world of volunteer work and, helping in that context, that's where the compensation should be. I don't think we have a money problem. We have a distribution problem. We don't have a food problem. We have a distribution problem. We live in abundance. And, I have a hard time throwing food away because I grew up in a household where there's never food. Now, I didn't know that I could just go down the way and find a food pantry. I just didn't know. I stole food as a kid. And I think, why? Now I just didn't know. And my thing was breaking and entering. If I broke into anything, I looked for the kitchen. I went right for the kitchen. I tried not to leave a trace so I can go back. And I could, I broke into schools and I cooked pizzas or took the box full of cookies, and that's just the way it was in that environment that I was in. And then going into another environment where my grandfather was gone 9 months out of the year, and there was a lot of criminal activity. There was shoplifting, there was insurance scams, there was, just a lot of toxic things that were happening. And it was all, in the accumulation of stuff, right? And then it was just piled on. Everything was just piled on top of everything else. And then it didn't make sense. Like, I was 10 years old, how many sets of china do you need? And the food pantry, you open it and you have to hold things back from falling out. And it was so disgusting, to such a level. I remember, my wife at the time saying, hey, we're going to do this Black Friday sale. And I didn't really understand. I remember hearing things like, people were trampled to get a Tickle Me Elmo or something. And I thought that was just insane. I mean, really insane. I couldn't believe it. But, I got up real early and it was kind of an adventure. And then I remember grabbing a cart and I was walking into a Kohl's or something. I don't remember what store it was. And I thought that I could just, bring a cart in there. And it was just this frantic frenzy. And I said, get me out of here now. I didn't last a minute. I said, get me out of here now. And I just thought it was pathetic, to no end. Oh my gosh. What exactly are we here for? I didn't understand. It didn't matter what it was there, what it was. It just didn't make sense to me at all. And so I've been a minimalist. I don't believe in storage. And they're building out these massive, massive storage facilities in Nevada. I'm in Nevada now with a pet facility there, and I just can't believe it. So I hope that we reach a level of healthy scarcity, right? If you watch the documentary that I have in the link, it's Story of Stuff. Watch that and really resonate with the fact that is not what is important, right? That the production of things, right? And if we can not rely so much on tariffs or production of things in China or anywhere else in the world, and they can then focus on nutrition, physical and social activity every day, and volunteering and being a community and being, working with their families and their communities and their counties and their states and how that comes together. I think the country that figures that out first is really the dominant, country. It's the one that figures out who can be the healthiest. I would say this is that, the U.S. is far behind in so many areas that they should not be. We should not be that far behind in education. We should not be that far behind in nutrition and being healthy, but we are. And it's because of the abundance. If you think about, I think about, what is a grocery store? It's probably 70, 80% processed crap, right? I mean, really, if you think about just staying in the outer aisles and the fruits and the vegetables and the meats and the poultries, it's like, why not? Why not keep it that simple? That there's so much to offer in vegetarian menus today. They're incredible. I've never ordered anything off a menu, vegetarian meal that was like, oh man, I'm not going to come back to this again. It's just so amazing that how healthy and how simple, and it doesn't require much today to be nutritionally healthy. Okay, and so I live in the salad bowl capital of the world, the garlic capital of the world, the artichoke capital of the world, the strawberry capital of the world. I hear all these things that are thrown out there, and I am surprised that we have the health conditions that we have. I really am, and it doesn't make any sense other than the fact that we rely on toxic industry so much. Because think about it. Okay, I was listening to a podcast about the healthcare industry. It has grown since 1970 over 6,000% in administrative costs, right? And then you have the physicians. It's only grown since 1970 just a little over 1,000%. So you think about the healthcare cost that create industry. That's why we have the problems we have. Now, if you think about Sugar Coated, the documentary that's in the link, Magic Pill that's in the link, these are, these toxic industry, the pharmaceutical industry, people are getting bought out. I mean, if you watch these documentaries, you realize that it's not just about them being toxic. It's about creating jobs. If there was a tire that lasts forever, let's just say that there's a tire that lasts forever, and in the past, you couldn't put it out on the market because it would wipe out trillions and trillions of dollars of labor force. How did people then transfer to another industry and feed their families, right? So if we have a universal income based on nutrition, based on social volunteering in your community, and I believe that is really where the answer lies. And then if we can eliminate all of these jobs that are not necessary, that doesn't mean that we want to throw AI in there and make potato chips taste, be more affordable. That's not the point. It defeats the whole premise of like what we're trying to do. But ultimately, if people then, I remember calling my insurance company, says, hey, we're a healthy family. We're paying you, it's over $17,000 a year. It just makes no sense. We're working for you, and there's no benefit. My kids are in sports. The only time we go to the doctor is once a year to get a physical, because it's required from the schools for them to play their sports. And they're like, yeah, no, you have no other options. So I got online and said, I need to find, because we were self-employed, I need to find another insurance. So I looked up groups, and it was based on my religious rights to opt out of Obamacare. And I saved, I saved over $10,000 a year. And I found Christian-based, it's not an insurance policy, it was a member-based plan where you contribute based on your needs. And preventative care was 100% covered, whereas it wasn't with the insurance company. And then my deductible went from $7,000 down to $1,500 at that time. And my premium went from $1,700, it was a little over $1,500 down to a little over $500. So $1,000 a month for a family of 6. And we got to go to any doctor, and we went through some trials, that my son was in the hospital for I think 3 days, and I can't remember what it was, but the bill was pretty steep. It was like, it was crazy, I think 60,000, and then my insurance, my healthcare plan negotiated with the people within the hospital, and they got it way down, and they paid it off in full, and there was no collections to us. So I was extremely impressed. Couldn't say enough about that. If you look up member-based health plans, Christian-based health plans, you'll find some stuff out there that I think you'll be very happy with, and I can't recommend them enough. I get there's no connection. I get no kickback. I don't know, other than the fact that it's worked really, really well for us, and they cover preventative care 100%. And I think that's what it should be. We should be in this mindset of preventative care about everything that we're doing. Spend more time with our families, spend more time not working for our stuff and having our stuff work for us, right? And so eliminate the frustration that we all experience as we build out our portfolios. Let me say this, is that, people that have not just a huge portfolio of real estate, and then navigating all the people that are required to, make that run smoothly, it's still overwhelming. It really is. You get a good team, and everybody kind of holds each other accountable. It's like a team, right? You have your coach, you have your teammates, and you have your people in the stands, or the customers. And I put my kids in sports because I said the owner, or boss is the coach. The teammates are the coworkers. People in the stands are the customers. You're going to learn life lessons, and it's going to give a foundation for you. Because when you put your foot on the field, you got to give 100%. Because if you don't, everybody's going to let you know it. So what if our 100% was more about nutrition? What if our 100% was more about family experiences? What if our 100% was more about community engagement and volunteering, and really building up our communities, and letting AI do the mundane jobs that people hate? Like, I would never want to wake up and be in the field working, and I just can't imagine what that's like. I'm spoiled, call it what it is. Even though I grew up in a household where there's never food, if you said, hey, you want to eat, you go out there, and I probably would have found a way. In that my mindset at that time, I was in and out of juvenile hall, and I was in a lot of trouble. I had 5 probation officers before I got into high school, and I had a counselor come beside me and say, school's not for everybody. And it changed my life forever. He goes, the difference between a job and a career. A job is a grind, but you got to put food in your tank. You have to take care of yourself. And he knew my background with my family. It was a toxic background. And he said, I can get you into this trade school. You can learn a trade, and you get paid for something you enjoy doing. And I was so excited. I went to Central County Occupational Center, and he said, you got to show up, you got to try. We have tutors, we're going to help you. And he gave me that C average. He allowed me to, have the tutors to help me get that C average, and I would show up, and I was dedicated because I couldn't think about anything else except getting into that trade school, that vocational school. And it was just powerful because I spent so much time in the classroom, and then I started taking sports, and I started thinking about nutrition, it just changed my life. I never wanted to go back, ever. Nothing was desirable. My family, misery likes company, right? The crab bucket syndrome of life, and not just in family, but in your community and in your work environments, all of these things, the dynamics, the human element is challenging when people have to go to work doing something they hate to do. But that work has to get done. Now the robotics and AI, we get to look forward to that. And I think we should be at the forefront of healthy scarcity. I think we should be at the forefront that, if there's $1 billion, this is an interesting story. A billionaire, he has this yacht and it's sitting in this, bay, in this boat harbor. And the people are pissed off and complaining because it just sits there, right? And it's a $150 million yacht. And they're starting to get upset. This is in Southern California. And they're like, hey, man, we don't want to look at this thing anymore. And I don't know if it just becomes an eyesore because it's so big or it's just looking run down. But this is a lot of situations where people have RVs and travel trailers and boats. And I have somebody that has a storage facility, and he goes, man, I'm building out more roof systems because they pay me more to keep their stuff. And he goes, they never use them, And I think some people watching this can relate to what I'm saying. You might have grandparents or parents or even yourself that you're paying storage for stuff that you never use. So, it's not serving you. It's not serving your family. It's not serving anybody. I have a fifth wheel trailer I use all the time. And when I go in there and I see it's worn, it warms my heart because it tells me that it's being used. And we were just replacing the decals, and we're going to sell it now because we don't use it as much, and we want to get a different toy hauler that's more a mudroom, and because the kind of work that we do. And I bought like a finished live-in style fifth wheel trailer, and I've used the heck out of it, and I've loved it. And my brother used it when he needed a place while he was in transition, and I just love the fact that it's used all the time. And so where I see that somebody's in the bed because I cleaned it up, and my son, stay there, and it just warmed my heart. It didn't matter if it was just one of his employees, or it doesn't matter. The fact is it's being used. And I propose that we can have this kind of a lifestyle where everybody gets to experience a $150 million yacht. And with their universal income, they contribute as a family, as a community, and get to experience this thing, and it's used every day potentially, right? And I would also propose that if we have to manufacture stuff, maybe we would do it on Mars, take it off the planet completely and just save our planet. And there's just so many options here that I think people are realizing. People are saying, AI, and it's disrupting. I would say most of the time you're looking at a false narrative. People are saying, oh, we're jumping in, we're making this money. No, they're not. I'm sorry. My buddy had to sell his he had a beautiful showroom, nobody would ever go. He's basically working for the landlord. Now he's saying, I can't make $80,000 in 5 months because I get it done in weeks. And I said, you need to find something else. It's like Blockbuster competing against Netflix. Not going to happen. It's like Walmart moving in, and all of the boutique shops that are, they're hand making all of the crafts and things in Hawaii. I spent a lot of time in Hawaii. And I said, you know what, just cut your losses. Just cut your losses. A friend that, somebody I got to know in a small town had a coffee shop, big screens and video games, and he wanted the whole community to come and just hang out there, right? And they tore down an old restaurant, and I said, what's going over there? And that's going to be a Starbucks. I said, hey, Charlie, the coffee shop owner, just cut your losses, man. You got to be shrewd. You have a 5-year lease. You spent $100,000 plus building out this amazing place, and it doesn't get the kind of business that supports you, and you're not even making minimum wage. It costs you money to be open every month because this community didn't have a lot of walking traffic. It's like people don't go, let's go out, to Prunedale or Prutucky. A lot of people call it Prutucky. They would go to the surrounding neighborhood, the towns, which is Monterey and Carmel and anything but Prutucky, right? It's like you don't go out to Denny's, you end up at Denny's. You don't end up in Prunedale to go out. You don't go out. You end up there, and so it just didn't have that kind of traffic. And so these businesses would move in and move out, within months, and it happened so much. There was so much turnover in these boutique shops within this, small town, that it just hurt to watch, truly. And I think about most industries that just tote like they are the next big thing, and they're not. It's I was in the industry of branded merchandise. I was shipping containers of merchandise, and I was working with large clients. And I remember going to trade shows and seeing people just so excited, just leaving with bags and bags of stuff from all the manufacturers that were on the floor, and they're going to go kill it, And I remember running into a competitor. We were all going after we were disadvantaged companies going after these prime contractors to the federal government. And I was learning that these prime contractors, getting 3 bids and then, taking the lowest bid, basically. But I knew the numbers, and I said, that vendor can't fulfill the contract. Say it's a 4-year contract and it's a $300,000, $400,000 contract. They get caught up in the numbers, not realizing that, the cost of doing business. Remember, time cost, material cost, labor cost, frustration cost. Well, I went to the president of that association and I said, this organization is to support small business. And at this time, I became a public speaker at the annual convention in Santa Clara, California, the Industry Council for Small Business Development. And I said to the president, a lot of these businesses are going out of business trying to serve these contracts that they're awarded. And I believe that the prime contractors realize this, okay? And she said, let me get back to you. And she got back to me, says, the problem isn't within our member base. The problem is that within your association not teaching your members how to do good business. And I said, wow, that's a great comeback. But, when I started taking myself off the bidders list, realizing how they were doing business, realizing that I couldn't speak to all the, the people, that were in charge of all these different commodities, selling their products and services. It could be architectural, it could be design, it could be, construction, whatever it was. I was a speaker, but I was speaking to an audience of small businesses and saying, you need to know what kind of relationship you're going to go into without going through months of filling out this documentation to prove that you have the finances to do business at this level, only to, get into a business relationship that's going to take you out of business. So as I was preaching this on the stage, making sure that, hey, you talk to the buyer of your commodity, whatever it might be, and say, do I have a fighting chance? And, what kind of margins could I expect? Who's the current vendor, preferred vendor, and how long have you had that relationship? Do you replace that vendor every 4 years, every 1 year, every 2 years? Can you talk to them? Can you, make sure that, you know what you're getting into? And as I took myself off the list and put the highest price possible, the buyers would call and say, Mark, you're not even in the ballpark. You want to rebid this? I said, no, I don't. And I'm okay with you taking me off the bidders list. It's not good business. And it's not entirely their fault. But when they know that awarded contract is not going to survive a 4-year or 2-year, whatever it is, and knowingly, I think that there's some things that need to be addressed, right? And so when I was talking to my competitors, and I was doing just good business, and I made sure of that, but I got caught up in the .com industry, and that was a totally different story, right? When they empty the buildings, they don't pay their bills, so. But it's another story altogether. But I remember talking to a competitor, and she was coming out, she just was all dressed up, and she's just so, all this energy. And I said, I just want to talk honestly about, our competitors who have gone out of business, and is it good business to be involved in this organization, the Industry Council for Small Business Development? And she just about collapsed. She just went from, this high energy, just like, sky's the limit, blue sky, everything's great, to just like a collapse. And she just, oh gosh, like my husband, thank God he has a job, and he's supporting me. And it's all this, it's a it's the appearance of, but there's no foundation. And think about all the industries that have been created. The dot-com industry was one of them. Smoke and mirrors. Get people to buy into this stock, go from 7 to 300. And they're stealing from the poor, and it's a transfer of wealth, right? And I see that so much as toxic industry. I see it so much with Ponzi schemes, right? Pyramid schemes, whatever you want to call it. It's just so much hype, and there's so much dishonesty in all that. I was at a real estate seminar, and I paid like $2,000 to go to this weekend seminar to learn everything I needed to learn. And at the end of the seminar, they're selling us on this. While we're in this seminar, we can go out in the field and go to Las Vegas, and all is paid. $27,000, not a $50,000 price tag, but they kept going down. No, we're going to offer this, we're going to offer this, we're going to offer this, and then it's $27,000. Like, you cannot pass this up. And I stood up, and I was so angry, and I said, you've dumped all this content in our laps over the last 2 days, and I have more questions today at the end of this conference than I did before I walked in. And I feel like I paid you to be in an infomercial, for you to sell me on this $27,000 package. And I don't know about everybody else in this room. I'm looking at this speaker, I'm looking at all his helpers and whatnot. And I know there was some plugs in that room, like, oh, I'm so excited. Oh my, this is amazing. This is great. And I'm like, okay, you work for the speaker. You work for the presentation folks here that are trying to sell this $27,000 package. And they took a break, right? I frazzled the team, if you will. And then I started handing my card. I said, I want to keep in touch, right? And, they approached me and said, hey, this is not a place to be handing out. That's not what we're doing here. This is not, networking. I said, no, I just thought that was crazy. I said, no, you're not going to tell me who I can hand my card out to or what cards I can accept, but we went through this course together, and I want to see who succeeds, who doesn't, and we want to track what's going on, and hopefully leverage what we have learned and make something happen. I don't know anybody that made anything happen. And I do remember running into somebody sometime later who said, yeah, I spent $27,000. I did go to Las Vegas, and I was out in the field, and I'm just $27,000 more in debt than I was before. And so I think that there should be, like a franchise, when they have to disclose every open book, like from East Coast to West Coast or internationally, location, what they make, what is their net profit, right? And it can't be ignored, it can't be denied, it's just open book. And it's audited. If you're going to buy into a franchise, you want to audit those books and knows, okay, worst case scenario, you're going to make $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year or whatever. And based on that demographic area, right, that you're buying into. And with that, I think that all businesses should be held to that accountability. Complete open book. I remember I was part of a multi-level marketing. And I was just so anxious to get in business and just do something. And I was so excited. And every time, it was just such a downer. It realized that you're spending all this time, and they keep you going, and you're on this treadmill, but it's costing you money, right? You don't realize the time and the material and the labor costs, all this that comes into play, and then the frustration. And yeah, you might be learning skills in sales, but the bottom line is that the only one making money is the ones at the very top that started it initially. And I remember one of the speakers was up on stage. We were at a convention in Las Vegas, and that was exciting. And she says, on average, based on from top to bottom, on average, it's like our members are making like under 400,000. She was trying to make a point, like she got tired of the hype, and she was trying to have some integrity, and to say, not everybody can be a John Valenti who is a top person, but everybody looked and visualized himself as being him. And so that was the sales tactic. That was the marketing ploy that got people to just keep going. And even though it was costing them money. So I look at the Western culture, capitalistic, not backed by gold. It's just, there's so much of that that's what we need to fix. And I think that if we can focus on robotics and AI to fix that problem and realize that people don't need to put themselves through that pain and suffering, that unnecessary pain and suffering, and that their skills can be better applied towards nutrition and, community engagement and volunteering and really being part of something that provides much, much more purpose in life than the accumulation of stuff, especially within the toxic industry that isn't healthy for anybody. And so that's where this, that's where this is going. I mean, I want to say that, it's just insane what we buy into. Like if I put diamonds on the table, you couldn't tell me which one was a 10,000 diamond or a $72 zirconian diamond. If I mixed them all up, you just wouldn't be able to tell if they were the same. There's 4 things: cut, clarity, color, and carat. All right. And if you put all of the same on the table, you would not be able to tell. I went to a restaurant. There was a $20,000 bottle of wine, and I called the guy over and said, "Is that U.S. currency?" I had to laugh. And I if you covered up all the labels and had a wine tasting party, I guarantee that nobody would pick that $20,000 bottle. And maybe they would have to have a trained palate. Well, who has a trained palate? And then if my taste is different than yours, we all have different tastes. Like if I take a medication, I might get all the benefits. Somebody else takes the same medication, they get all the side effects. We're all chemically different in that context. But I think with AI and how that's going to affect the medical industry and how we're going to understand chemically where we are and what we need and what we don't need and where we are on that level, it's a game changer. We don't need this toxic industry. I don't trust doctors. I don't. They have a lifestyle that they have to maintain that they're trying to keep up with. And it's sad. It's straight. My story is that I had a meniscus tear and I went to a doctor, an orthopedic surgeon. He said, "Okay, I see it. Let's, he looked at the MRI. Let's cut it out, outpatient." I said, "Slow down. YouTube University. I know there's 6 tears, 3 you can fix, 3 you cannot. I want to consider fixing it. I don't want to tear it out." He says, "Well, I don't specialize in that. We'll refer me to a specialist." He was upset a little bit, and obviously he's not going to make the money he's going to make. Like my buddy holds that material back, that, the designs, for months because he wants to charge $80,000 even though it took him weeks and it's going to take his competitor weeks. So now he no longer has that business anymore. He sold and he walked away from that, that lease, that showroom and all that. It was just a complete waste. He's throwing money at that landlord. And so I went to see the specialist on my knee, and the specialist looked at the same MRI and says, "Okay, Mark, I see where this tear starts, I see where it ends," and he says, "There's 6 tears, 3 I can fix, 3 I can't." And he says, "But we don't cut it out anymore. That's old school thinking. Am I glad I didn't listen to the first guy and pay him, right?" And he says, "I'm going to give you a wedge, take the weight off that inner knee and just try not to irritate it." I'm like, "I'm bummed. Yeah, I am bummed. But, I still didn't have to spend the money and look forward to a knee replacement sooner than later." And then I'm watching something on stem cell. Tony Robbins talks about this a lot. And I had stem cell. They took bone marrow out of my hip. It was procedures, cost like $7,000. It was worth every penny because I have 100% knee. And they didn't cut it out. They fixed it with stem cell injections. And that is incredible. My son got in a quad accident. He was driving. He's 19 years old. He's in pain. And I said, "Okay, stop right there." Now, he didn't need stem cell. It wasn't that severe, but he got platelet injections, from the top to the bottom. And he's just doing so much better. Now, I want to take him to Panama because he's not 100%. He says he's like 90. But the bottom line, why not 100? And Tony Robbins talks about Panama, where they take stem cell out of a umbilical cord and then they inject that. And it's life-changing, right? And think about the costs. So if we wipe out the industry of orthopedic surgery because of this new innovation, that wipes out massive hundreds of millions of dollars of industry, right? So I think we need to look forward to industries being totally eliminated, if not totally disrupted, so that we get the best care and there's no conflict of interest. There's no conflict of interest. We can trust, an AI robot to look at our teeth and tell us that we don't have a cavity. I went to see a dentist and he's like, oh, we got to deep clean your gums. And I'm like, what are you talking about? My gums are fine. They don't bleed. He's just trying to, I said, I don't have the insurance that you're billing. So, it's a self-pay. And he goes, well, you need this. And he went away and she was setting up the table and I took the bib off and I said, get the doctor out here. He wouldn't even come out of he's busy. I can't get him out. I said, yeah, I wanted to talk to him. I don't have a problem confronting, deceitful, dishonest people. We all should. Just because they wear a coat and a stethoscope around their neck, they have a lifestyle they're trying to maintain. There's a conflict of interest. And I think AI is going to eliminate that conflict of interest. Having a universal income is the answer if we can have healthy scarcity. Healthy scarcity is the answer to having a more purpose-driven, healthier life and avoid a lot of unnecessary pain and suffering within the toxic industries that make up most of the world, right? We have to create jobs, and now we don't. And so, yeah, I think it's important to be working hard. I mean, I don't like the landscape. If a robot can do it, but when I hire my landscaper, he's loving it. He's got all the tools. He's in that zone. He's in that space, and I love renovating, a kennel into a resort. It's just, you get into that space where you're in your element, you're in your zone, and then it blesses everybody involved. You're not doing it to undermine anybody. That's the blessing. If you're, if we're training dogs and we have all the staff, that we have 8-10 trainers, and you're going over the basic obedience, if they're doing it right, you have your families that are out in the public domain and they're going to airports and hospitals and grocery stores, and they're teaching that dog how to be tethered to a child that has autism or has some other disability, seizures. It's incredible. You can't put a price tag on it. So that's where we should be. You think about all the toxic industry where people say, well, it's like if you're a drug dealer. Well, if I don't sell it to him, somebody else will. Oh, great. Yeah, that works. But I will tell you, I grew up in the environment where I resorted to stealing. I resorted to stealing food. I didn't steal toys. I steal stuff that I just needed nutrition, right? I got into sports and there was never food, and I just was hungry. And I say, if we wiped out our agriculture industry because of robotics, and people are standing, in the Home Depot parking lot just begging to work, should we blame them, if they resort to dealing drugs, crime and prostitution? Okay? I mean, I look at what do doctors do when they can't operate their practice and they have to shut it down, and then they have a lifestyle, and that they become the ones that sacrifice their integrity in the area of, they have more access to drugs and, creating criminal activities in their industry more so than the field workers, right? So, and that's kind of how it trickles down if you think about it. There's a lot of movies about it. There's a lot of documentaries. There's a lot based on true stories. All of these things they create industry, big industry, right? So if we could relieve ourselves of that, why not? If we don't have to create jobs, if we don't have to create that kind of industry, and we can focus on experiencing life, everybody could experience life, removing toxic industry and enjoying quality time, doing quality things that impact the lives of others, not a bad way to go. And if AI and robotics, in my opinion, provide that, then why not? I remember the movie Bucket List. It was Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman. And he's got this special coffee he has to have, And one of the bucket list items, they got to laugh until they can't breathe or something like that, until they cry. And Morgan Freeman breaks the news that this superior coffee that he has to have is like monkey shit, you know? And it's like, what do we do as humans to wallow in that? You know, it's just crazy. You know, I remember Born Rich is in a documentary, and somebody's bragging, I think it was Donald Trump's daughter, is bragging about all these purses she has, you know. And I thought, wow, it's kind of terrible, man. You know, like, she probably doesn't even really appreciate them to the level that they should be appreciated. They just thrown onto the pile, right? And, you know, and yet she wasn't talking about her volunteer work and, you know, what she might be doing with this excess wealth that she has in the world, but more about bragging about the, you know, how many brand name purses she has. And I just thought, how sad. I'm fortunate my kids travel the world. They've been to, you know, Africa. They've been to Bali. You know, they're there when, you know, earthquakes happen, and then they're building houses and helping, you know, and you can't put a price tag on it. You just can't. And I don't think people realize how precious that is. And I think if everything becomes a commodity, you know, that when all this money went out to the government and people were literally buying $800 belt buckles, and I don't even know what the brand was, and somebody was saying, are you kidding me? These, you know, inner city kids, right? They're the ones that are shooting another kid for the shoes, their Nike Airs or something like that. It's just like getting trampled over Tickle Me Elmo. And I think that's what we're gonna look forward to completely eliminating, because, you know, there is this scarcity mindset, like, oh, if you want to buy a Rolex, you know, you got to get on this wait list. And, you know, AI and robotics, they can pump those out in no time and it dramatically lower the cost for anything. It could be a Ferrari, it could be a Lamborghini, it could, whatever it is, you know, it can dramatically lower the cost, especially the frustration cost, because the human element is removed from the equation. And that human element should transition over to focusing on things that are just so much more meaningful. And, you know, I just realized how toxic, you know, I'm in the Western culture, so the Western culture is in regards to just, you know, overconsumption, right? I'm a minimalist. This was an Airbnb that I live in, and it was set up by a, you know, interior designer with artwork and things like that. And it does strike that emotional chord, but I think it would be great if everybody could afford, you know, that level of comfort. I don't know if anybody has, you know, with the Hearst Castle. I went out there and it was so gaudy. It was so disgusting to me on such a level, because my grandmother tried to take on that lifestyle with the bright red lipstick, and, you know, she was a chain smoker, and the walls were yellow, not because they were painted yellow, because of the smoke, and everybody smoked. They eventually got hypnotized. My mom, and my brother quit because he hacked up something and looked at it and just was so disgusted that he stopped smoking these Pall Malls. The hardest part was the packing, you know, because of non-filter, and he just didn't know what to do with his hands. Another buddy of mine would chew pencils because, you know, he just didn't know what to do with his hands. He always had a cigarette in his mouth. And but my other grandmother, she got hypnotized and she quit, and it worked, you know. And so, but we're so influenced by our Western culture based on movies specifically. It's propaganda, right? Hook, line, and sinker. And my grandmother wished she could quit, and she was always hacking up. It was disgusting. And, you know, she collected crystal, and you know, how many sets of china do you need? And it was just made no sense. But here's what it was too, is you're on that conveyor belt that, you know, everything deteriorated. Rats took over the back storage, 2-story storage barn that she had all the tables and chairs and beds and cushions, whatever it was. And it just became disgusting because you can't keep up with it. It just became overwhelming. And my grandfather passed, and he was always throwing his hands up and just getting on a ship. And you know, he didn't want to face the elephants in the room. And his kids were train wrecks, straight up, through and through. You know, they were train wrecks. And I think it was my grandmother's way of ignoring how bad it was with their kids. And, you know, my uncle was, you know, killed in self-defense by distant cousins. My mom and her sister, I mean, nothing you wanted to come home to. And, you know, my dad bailed out too. He said, you know, I never knew what I was coming home to. It was just, my mom was so addicted to her family and that separation anxiety, even though she was mistreated, verbally abused constantly. You know, that's just what she was used to, and she was frazzled, and she was, it always seemed like she was on something, and she was alcoholic until later in her life, and it was tough as a kid to watch this, you know, and hear all these discussions about the insurance scam, or how they were going to walk in the store and their makeup. My grandmother had 4 fake IDs before she passed away, and all of the scheming, and then the men would come in the room and it would just be total, you know, staged presentation of everything's wonderful, right? The TV was always on. It was toxic on so many levels, and I just refused to raise my kids that way. And now with gaming, there's over 8 million men in their prime not working, right? And they're, you know, spending 2,000 hours annually on a screen. And so if they're playing video games, you know, Jordan Peterson says they're bottom basement dwelling losers, and they're buying into these, you know, money-making side hustles or whatever, you know, quick fix. It's just not right. It's just like a Ponzi scheme. It's just like, you know, these pyramid schemes and whatnot. And it's sad, but I'm proposing that AI, we can look forward to removing that. This is like the drama. It's an addiction like a drug. Just like the drug of my family shoplifting and insurance scams and drug dealing. It's a drug. It's an adrenaline rush because there's nothing else you have to replace that lifestyle, you know, because going to a job is extremely boring and you can't stand you're counting the minutes, right? If you don't have a career. Now I'm working with somebody that says careers without college, right? Because these people have all these student debts. They can't get a job. They're anchored to these debts. They can't buy a house. They can't buy a car because they have these huge student debts. And the college system's a scam, right? In my opinion, I have a buddy that's working in a college university, says they have endowments. They have so much money they could pay everybody's way. And I was raising money for UC Berkeley. We raised billions of dollars. I was a marketing consultant and for university relations department. It's just crazy, you know? And so it's one of those things where AI has the ability to bring us not jobs. It's not about jobs. It's eliminating jobs, like Amazon, you know, opening up the doors, and it's a floodgate during COVID. Nobody's shopping at, you know, the local brick and mortar stores. And then COVID's over and everybody's used to just buying stuff on Amazon. And I don't think people realize how bad it is out there. You know, I'm talking with bankers because I'm refinancing, and I'm always leveraging, you know, other people's money, bank money, basically, getting better interest rates, getting more conventional loans. And they tell me, you know, because I'm working with 4 different banks, and they're saying, you know, 8 out of 10 companies, you know, they can't help. They're on thin ice, right? But you never know that because pride, ownership, pride gets in the way. It just does. And people just like that girl, that, you know, the gal that was working with the prime contractors, the federal government, we're talking Lockheed Martin, Space System, Morale, you know, transportation industry, Amtrak, Caltrain, you know, Boeing. And, you know, she just about collapsed. She's like, you know, she's working her tail off and just on thin ice. And, you know, I'm glad I got out when I did. I really am. And I'm glad that .com took me out. I remember coming home, I went into a courtroom in Palo Alto and was weeping, basically saying, I got kids to feed, 3 kids, and this guy sold, you know, mysimon.com and $350 million, started dreamlot.com, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't want to pay his bills. I delivered. I thought it was criminal that he would knowingly not, you know, pay me. And I was just one of a half dozen companies that, you know, they got funded, they went public, you know, and it was the stock price, and then they jump out with their golden parachutes, and, you know, the retail stock buyers, us, you know, end users are getting shafted. We're losing all this money. And so there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in industry that's created this. Think about the financial crisis, the real estate industry, smoke and mirrors, deregulation of banks, smoke and mirrors. Okay, it's just a matter of time. But it's all in an effort to create jobs. And if that is no longer a factor in what we are trying to do, right? Watch Story of Stuff. Okay, the governments are just a pawn to the corporations, right? That's how it works. These lobbyists are like, hey, we're going to create industry, we're going to create jobs. Yeah, it's toxic. Okay, let's look the other way. There's going to be a lot of money moving around. And that's kind of what it is. And I think that even those people that are in that arena can look forward to getting out knowing that they're not going to have to get subjected to it. So, this is, I wrote this one down. This was amazing. This was the Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins. And it talks about him going out to third world countries and creating industry where they're building out massive infrastructure for trade. And, he becomes a Christian and realizes that there's no possible way they can pay these loans, these debt obligations, but they do want their natural resources, right? And how many people, the local villagers suffer because of that? And it's not to, build their economy. It's to take their resources. And this is a story of stuff. Like, I'm proposing that AI, if we leverage it properly, it's the healthiest solution to the problem that we have in our Western culture influence, in our capitalistic, mindset. It's completely avoidable. So it's extremely measurable expectations of time, material labor, and frustration. And so what we're looking at is if we can reduce that to such a minimum, like we can put out a tire that lasts forever. We don't have to worry about all the trillions of dollars of industry of making new tires and making them so that they wear out as fast as possible. That's planned obsolescence, right? That's what it is. Well, if we didn't have to worry about planned obsolescence so that more crap doesn't go into landfill and more chemicals go into the atmosphere, if there was a way to produce all that stuff up in space maybe, or on Mars, and then save our planet, just not have to deal with smog. I mean, I'm fortunate. I live in the part of the world that I don't have to navigate that, like down south in LA and other cities that are just constantly, it's a health concern for people to breathe air, right? And so that's what we get to look forward to, is how this AI and robotics is the solution to move towards a healthier lifestyle so that we can actually raise our kids, that people that have kids, that we can start spending more time, quality time together. We can raise our kids to be more contributing, to not their health, number one, and then their time into the community that they serve. And that, to me, I don't think there could be anything more valuable in living a purpose-driven life and looking forward to leveraging AI and robotics and how that would eliminate toxic industry and jobs that people just hate, right? I mean, I'm fortunate that I found trades and I found work that I love and I get into that zone, but everybody, and if you looked at the entire planet, what percentage of people can have that opportunity to look forward to the work that they get to do every day? That I can't believe they pay me to do this. I can't believe I get the lifestyle that I have. It's not about me. I want to compensate more than anybody else in the industry, in the entire history of the industry. I want to compensate the people that work within our companies in more compensation. I want them to have an ownership mentality. I want them to go have such an amazing company culture that outside of work, they're skydiving and that they're spearfishing and they're surfing and they're doing things of interest that they would love to do as a team, as a relationship with each other, to really build a foundation so that they have the resiliency, to take on the challenges of life and live a life of just quality that they otherwise wouldn't have, because the standard pay the prevailing wage within the industry is not very high, and the cost of living is. So there's a huge disparity, and we try to provide housing. We're trying to do things that other companies are not doing, and I think we're doing a pretty good job, and we're getting better and better at it every day, and we're building a bigger and bigger team to navigate those details. And I think about the crisis, the real estate crisis, the economic crisis affecting the entire world, and I remember that I went out. I was going to be going law enforcement because I said it's sustainable, right? And I did weapons training, and it was so exciting. And then, I had to stand guard, armed security at installation in Monterey, California. And it was brutal. I mean, it was brutal. I had to count the minutes. I was just trying to get in on the prison system and then just see where this career path would take me, because the construction industry just collapsed, right? No real estate was being built, or sold or bought, just foreclosures. And I got caught up in that mess, but I was able to pivot. But I remember, I'll never forget the buses and the radios. Hey, we need more buses. We need more buses. And just like thousands of people that were, loan officers and title agents and, bankers, and they were all looking to sustain their life. And I remember the stress that was on their face. They were dressed up, and it was just comical because the guards were saying, I don't know what they're doing here. We hire military. This is, you stand guard. They would never be able to do this kind of work, because they don't understand that they're going to be basically in a cage, and looking at screens and babysitting grown adults, and they don't have the demeanor, the mindset, or the technical skills to take down, an inmate potentially, right? And so it was a complete waste of time for them, but they were desperate. And so that industry, those industries, the bottom fell out, and it was, a major catastrophe in our world. And so, when you look at that industry, though, it's a money-making industry. It's a money-making industry. They want to privatize it. They want to get private equity firms to buy into the prison system. And I want to propose that if we allow AI and robotics to truly leverage our ability to be healthier, to spend more time with each other, to learn about human nature and what makes us tick. And, I will tell you that as a kid growing up, the reason I was in so much trouble because I felt like I wasn't smart enough to be in certain environments, so that this was my life, a life of crime. I was doing armed robberies. I was breaking and entering was my biggest thing, but no fear at all. I went in to grab things that were of value that I could sell on the street at a very young age. And it was encouraged. It was encouraged as well by my family. It was, misery likes company, right? And, I realized how sickening that was. I remember dining, ditching, and bragging about it, like, going to the nicest restaurant. And I remember, being with a friend and, man, I'm hungry. You're hungry. And yeah, I'm starving. And he goes, pull over. And we pulled over at a really nice steak and lobster restaurant. And we went in, and I went to order the special. He pulls the menu out of my hands and says, hey, we're going to have steak and lobster for two. He's getting married. And I wasn't getting married, but she bought into it, the waitress. And it was an exciting night. And, it was funny because we walked in, and the hostess looked us up and down like, are you just coming off the street? I mean, she just like, oh, like, I can't sit you down like that. And, and we looked at each other and we're like, yeah, table for two. We had that inner confidence in those situations. And I remember this lady came out of the bar and she was intoxicated, and we were laughing, and we started talking to her, and she was wet, like she had been outside because it was raining pretty heavily. And she said that the bartender stole her purse. And so we were, oh, okay, well, you look wet. Did you went outside? She goes, well, yeah, obviously I did. And then, we just were having a good conversation, just joking around, and she enjoyed the conversation as well, an older woman. And then the police showed up, and we're like, whoa, okay, this is where we kind of exit. We sit across the room and not get involved with what was happening. And then the police officers went out to her car, and her purse was in between the door and the seat. So she went in her car to drive away, totally intoxicated. And good thing she didn't, obviously, but her purse had fallen between the seats, so she couldn't find it, and then she blamed the bartender for stealing it. So then they said, just have some coffee, and obviously she felt stupid, but the manager came over to our table and said, hey, wow, thank you so much. Gosh, you guys were amazing. And we're like, yeah, thanks, you're welcome. We're already committed here. So they gave us free drinks and hors d'oeuvres. And, these drinks were fancy, tall drinks, and we just ordered it up. We ordered it, potato skins. I never had potato skins before. And, we're like, we were so full. When we got the steak and the lobster, we were just full. And so then she said, I can't imagine you guys want dessert. And we look at each other, we're like, well, no, can we get some to-go trays? And she got the to-go trays. And then we said, you know what, let's do chocolate mousse, because we just need her to go, get busy doing something so we can get out. And I'll tell you this, the place was packed, and then as we kind of, it died down so that we can kind of look around and go, okay, we can make it out without anybody really noticing us. And then we got the to-go trays, and then she went down. It was downstairs in the kitchen to get the chocolate mousse, and we left. And we laughed so hard. It rained so hard. We were running to the car, and my buddy's tray opened up, and his steak fell out. It was like filet mignon, and he's trying to find it in this puddle, and I'm like, hey, I don't. Get in the car. We got to go before they run out the door and chase you, or chase us. And he's laughing. I'm laughing so hard. And then he gets it, and he just, rinses it off with the water, and then throws it in the tray, and we jump in the car, and we just, hightail it, burn rubber. And man, we had steak and lobster and eggs the next day, and our brother's like, "Wow, my gosh, that was a big deal." I was working for a restaurant, the old spaghetti factory, years later, and I remember one of the waitresses crying, and I said, "Why is she crying?" She goes, "Oh, she got stiffed." I thought, well, they didn't give her a tip, and they go, "No, they dine and ditch." And I said, "Well, so what? What's that have to do with? Why is she crying about it?" And she goes, "No, she's got to pay the bill." And man, it hit me like a ton of bricks, because at this point I changed my life. I was on the straight and narrow, and I just, I still think about that to this day. I just think, gosh, it makes me sick to think that person who was so sweet, man, so happy for me because I'm going to get married, and just blew me away, And then even the manager says, "Hey guys, really appreciate you talking to that lady and just distracting her until the police got there," and that, we're just like laughing about it. And knowing that we're not paying for what we're going to eat, and ordering the most expensive stuff on the menu. And, that's the kind of stuff where, when I stole some cameras one time from a school, all of them, and then learned later that was a teacher that donated those cameras, that was passionate about photography and teaching kids. And those cameras never got used, never got appreciated for what they were there for. And I didn't know, and they were somebody's cameras, personal cameras, and a lady that had a collection, and she lost all, it wasn't insured. And I ran into a buddy, I remember how I even shared the story, but I said, I was just glad those days were over. And he just had this sick look on his face. He goes, that was just, I know who that was. That was my mom's like best friend. And I was like, wow, man, it all comes full circle. And now I try to contribute as much as I can. Somebody said they stole from Macy's. I worked at Macy's, and they said they stole so much stuff. And I said, well, you stop stealing. Yeah, of course. I got a family now. My life's changed. I said, well, if you can never give back as much as you stole over all those years, but if you ever need anything and they have it at Macy's, buy it at Macy's. That's the only way you can give back. And, I think Macy's has gone through a few close bankruptcies, right? But that's what I'm saying, is that there's so much thin ice going on to maintain what we believe is this healthy economy, but then it's not. If it relies on so much toxic industry to be a healthy economy, then with AI and robotics, why should we not look forward to making the transition as quick as possible? Why should we not look forward to reaching out to our president even Mr. Musk and say, hey, the medical, we can reduce all these, administrators and dramatically improve healthcare. That doesn't seem like rocket science to me. I think now is the time to make that known and really, orchestrate what is available to us and make it happen as quick as possible. And I think transparency is so critical. Like what's happening in the government, there's a lot of wealth being fraudulently distributed, but it creates industry, that creates business, like it or not, that's what it is. And when people have more money than they know what to do with, they're having a custom yacht built or a plane or whatever it is. But then once it gets built, is it just sitting there for years and years because, they're looking for the next Ponzi scheme, fraudulent transaction that we, the taxpayers, are paying for? That's crazy. And then I can't, if I were to take money and not show the results of why I received the money, I wouldn't want to have a lifestyle, and I wouldn't want to show my face in public to that degree that says, okay, well, yeah, I don't have anything to show for it. I mean, I want to have something to show for it. I want to show that it blessed a lot of people. It was good. It was good. It was healthy, and I can hold my head high and look into the camera and be proud of what I have created that blessed other people. And so, when my kids were growing up, they were sought after because they had extremely strong work ethics. And they knew how to fix stuff. They knew underground, they knew plumb, square, they knew electrical. They had enough knowledge so that they could be competent. And they had a foundation of health and nutrition, and they had resiliency to overcome. And so the challenges of just, owning companies. My 20 at the time, we closed escrow on the 31st, January 31st, and he owns a company. And he grew up in the pet care industry, and he knows the inner workings of the clock. And, he was going to school, learned accounting, and created the business plan and the projections. And, his resume was incredible. And so, all of my kids, and one of my kids got upset at me because I said, I tell people if there was a child labor law, I broke them all. And I say that. But yeah, our kids worked in the family business, so we paid them, I think it was up to $4,000 a year, and then they don't get taxed, and it's a tax write-off for the company, our business. That's where this comes into play here, tax-free wealth. And it talks about that kind of stuff. And as I read through this, as we become this acquisition company, and hopefully more than just the pet care industry, the industries that make sense for our portfolio. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the industries that are getting disrupted, they should be the first in line to look forward to universal income. And, have a healthy mindset with that income. I believe, I think that it should be directly linked to nutrition and social engagement in the communities that they serve. And even within their families, when you're taking, child psychology courses, right? Before our daughter could get into the daycare, we had to go to this course. And I remember I had a member of our family, he had a child that was just incorrigible, a biter, and it was brutal. And this child psychologist was talking about her friends and family didn't want anything to do with her because her son was a biter. And she said she bit him and she cornered him and she hogtied him basically, and all the things that you try to do to stop this from happening. And she discovered that random praise was the answer. Random praise. And I had a brother-in-law who was a fire captain, and he was in tears. He goes into the situations and he assesses it and he fixes it. And with his child, he couldn't, and it was hard for him. And the family didn't want anything to do with it. My daughter would walk in the room, they're about the same age, and she'd stop quickly and just back up real slow, and he'd grab her by the hair and push her head down. And one time they were walking together, and it was so precious, you want to take a picture, and then all of a sudden he just acts out and doesn't know what to do with this energy, right? Now he's a very successful young man. I believe he could, be a president, CEO of, a very large corporation. He did very well in school. He took on sports. Sports is a huge answer to, men that, are, going through puberty and having all these testosterone just shooting through their veins. Trust me, I got into sports, very thankful I did, and that's why another reason I put my boys in sports. And it engages them. It engages them at that level that just is required, in my opinion, to overcome, the emotions that they have, especially as it relates to relationships. So with that, the coaches like the manager, boss, teammates, coworkers, people in the stands, of the customers, and they learn life lessons. And sports are very, very valuable to just exert that energy. With dogs, a tired dog is a good dog. They play all day and then they pass out, and just as kids do. And you approach them based on their personality. If they're sensitive, you're soft-spoken, to reach their heart and their mind. And if they're an alpha, you got to be a drill sergeant. But no means no, yes means yes, because it's about safety. If stay is stay. And it's about safety. It's always about safety. Nobody can argue safety. And, with that, we have the ability to focus on those things that are most important to build a foundation for the next generation to have that foundation to overcome and have that resiliency to overcome the challenges that they're facing, and then to focus on what's truly important rather than just the materialistic, consumeristic, Western culture, world culture, manufacture. Watch the show, story of stuff. Watch story of stuff. Watch sugar coated. Watch the magic pill. Be aware of what this is all about, and you truly, it just you'll pivot and you'll go, never going back. Why? Yeah, I like junk food once in a while. You're not going to be legalistic about it. But ultimately it should be 10% of your consumption, not 50, 60, 70%, right? And that's what, people rely on. Now, I'll tell you one more story. And if you can help me in the comments, it's Alan Alda, he went to a reservation. It was like Frontline, or it was a show. There's a documentary where Alan goes to this reservation, and they're living to be 100+ years old, healthfully, right? And he's talking to the elders. And they just got through harvesting and the nutrient-rich foods, right? And they just look so amazing. And they're celebrating the harvest, right? And he says, so what happened? And then it goes into the tribe outvoted them, right? The tribe outvoted the elders. They told the government, we don't want to move. Just leave us alone. We're doing fine. We've been doing what we've been doing for generations, and this is how we do it. And the elders like, no, we want the easy life, right? I mean, the tribal people. So then Alan Alda goes to the tribe where they moved them, where they had affordable housing, and they had playground, and they had the shopping center, and and he goes into the shopping center, and they're pulling all this processed crap off the shelves, and they're microwaving and deep frying, and they're just obese, and they're all dying in their 40s, of obesity and amputated legs, and they pan the playground. No kids are outside, and then you're like, oh my gosh, it's horrific, right? You can't believe what you're seeing. And then he's got them in a circle, and he shows the kids in the house, and they're all huddled, in the house watching this big, huge flat screen, big round faces, and not healthy at all. And he's having a talk with the tribal people, like, hey, you took on the Western culture ways. How's it going? It's not going well. You don't even need to ask a question. You could see it. And they're like, hey, it's too late for us. We can never go back. And the person that said that, I thought, who are you? Are you the new elder that decides for those kids? Like, I came home from a parent-teacher conference knowing my kids were failing miserably, and I knew gaming was a problem, but I was working so much the work that I love, that I needed to separate myself and reallocate my time and say, I'm giving where I should be taking and taking where I should be giving. And so I became that stay-at-home dad on a working ranch, and I said, no. I pulled the cable out, took all the electronics, and I knew gaming was an addiction like a drug, this Halo game, but I'd leave on a Saturday, 8 hours later, come back and say, have you been sitting here the whole time? And, they would say, like they look like zombies. They look at me like, and I go, oh my, turn that off. And, I'd say to my wife at the time, why are you letting that? And she goes, I yell at them, they don't listen. And, I think that's most of the situation. There's no man in the house. There's no man that has a man voice that said, no, not on my watch, not going to happen. Most of the men in my life checked out. They couldn't, I can't do anything, forget it. And they checked out. And then it was just a complete toxic shit show. And so the thing is that my kids did well in school, right? They did well in school. Watch Gifted Hands, the movie, Ben Carson's story. He struggled as a kid, and the TV was always on, just like in my house. Nobody ever asked me to do my homework. And it's funny. How many reruns of I Love Lucy can you watch, or whatever the sitcom or whatever the series is? It's pointless, especially with video games, right? And social media, The Social Dilemma. Watch the documentary. It just opens your minds to what is really going on. Like this tribe said, oh, it's too late for us. Who the hell are you? Who the hell are you? Just go, pull the cable, no more TV, and then go play out in the playground. And then we're going to go ahead and talk to our elders and get on a nutritional program. And we're going to regroup. And we're going to take this on as a tribe. But man, too late for us. Who the hell are you to decide? And I wonder if any of those kids, watched that show later in life and looked back and said, that person's dead now. It didn't end well, obviously. And they would say, no, we can make a change here. We get to decide, and that our kids potentially don't have to, it doesn't have to end that well. It doesn't have to end that way. And it's going to end a lot better. So that was an impactful story in my life. And I just said, wow, my kids, we were all about nutrition. And I unplugged them. They turned the situation around. I went to the dollar store, got flashcards. They did very well in math. And in the car, we do spelling words. And the homework was done. And then I put them in sports to occupy their time out of school. They went right to the practice field. They played sports year round. And that is what made their life so amazing today, to have a world mindset and travel around the world and help families in need and build houses and do things that are impactful into the world. And that's what we all now have the opportunity for. We get to decide that is what is important, and not just, going to school, having all this extra debt that we don't, that handcuffs us forever, and then, we don't have to just go get a job and just count the minutes. This is what robotics is going to offer us today and in our world today. And we get to look forward to that. And we also get to look forward to a universal income. At the same time, it should be tied directly to our nutritional state and our contribution in our communities. And I think once people come together and they clean up the mess, right? And they beautify, the cities that they live in, the towns that they live in, it's a game changer. And we'll look back and just go, why didn't we do it sooner, right? So with that, I hope this inspires you. I hope it encourages you to take the actions you need to take. Let's talk to, our politicians. Let's really support a healthier future for generations to come. And with that, I hope this message finds you extremely well. I thank you for watching this content, and most importantly, for being inspired and encouraged to take action. Nothing happens without action. I would highly recommend that you meditate every day as you walk, as you are being social in your environments, as you're nutritionally healthy, to manifest what will make a difference in your life. Share how you overcame, the dramas and the toxicity of your life, and not just holding yourself accountable, but holding other people accountable. And boundaries are constant, never ending. For every new level, there's a new devil. And you're constantly going to have to put boundaries on yourself and others and be accountable. Be accountable. So I hope that the content inspired you, encouraged you. There's a lot of links, a lot of resources that will help you overcome, build a foundation, and take the actions. Share your comments, share your successes, share those milestones, as small as they might be. And with that, I hope this message finds you well.